Let's go ahead and get started. We have a number of things to cover today. First, we do have one guest. Chief Middleton is here. We'll address this in a few minutes here. First, approval of minutes of the last meeting. I thought they were very well done and very professional, and I appreciate Kathy's efforts.
I brought 3 extra copies if anybody needs them. I didn't bring them for everybody, but.
Okay, any comments on the minutes? A motion to approve?
Approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, the Discovery Center lease. We talked a lot about it at the last meeting. Over the past week, there's been some communication that's been going on, but what we need to do is give advice to the board as to how they want to approach things going forward. Any thoughts beyond what we talked about last week?
Refresh our memory a little bit. Were we talking about the $1,900 a month just for the lease of the building? Is that what we're talking about?
Right.
Is that
$1,955 plus utilities.
And then the utilities run about 500 roughly.
Well, I went down to the Discovery Center, and it's a really nice facility in that. But first I had problems trying to find the door, but that might be my personal problem. But, you know, it's off the road, and I know they put some signs out, but I'm not sure that's going to be able to get people to turn in there and go to that facility. To me, it's just in the wrong location. It needs to be more over by the road or somewhere near the guard shack or beyond that, where there's some parking in that. I like the concept and think that that's important, but at this point, I just don't see that that's advantageous to the POA where the location is. I just don't see how it's gonna work well.
All right. Any other thoughts?
I also went over there, and then today I popped in the chamber office to see where it might relocate. I didn't tell anyone while I was there. I just went, walking around, looking. But kind of like Wayne said, I think the place in Eastgate's a really nice place, really nice office, well done. I think it kind of strikes me as a build it and they will come type of concept, and nobody's coming right now. I think the folks might be a little scrunched in the chamber office, if they all move or whatnot. But I think it's doable in today's times, particularly economically. I think we should make that move into the west side.
Wouldn't we be better to maybe relocate to an office that doesn't cost us as much and take the remaining cash, and when the visitor checks at the gate, give them a little envelope that shows them the stuff and where the Discovery Center is located if they're more interested in finding out information? I think we'd reach more people that way at the guard shack than we do, people having to turn before they enter the village.
Well, I think the other pieces of information that was kind of coming in this week too is that location has been there for 14 months and 2 years. And so, their statistics indicate that they're not getting very much walk-in traffic. They didn't get it last year. They didn't get it downtown. And I believe that rationale was that they think things will pick up on the east end. I don't see any metrics that indicates that that's going to happen anytime soon. So, but I also believe that group wants to stay together. And if somebody went into the center at the visitor center at the Westgate, it would just be one person that would be interacting with handing the packages out and that kind of thing. So, but I think they all want to stay together, as I understand it. So. Again, I said this last week and I'll say it again, this is a matter of economics at this point because the metrics don't to me, don't justify it, so.
Yeah, the only way that I might consider an alternative to that in remaining would be if the, if the owners would reduce the rent to a level that we would have obtained at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
But even at that,
Chances of that
the
are not.
number of visitors in that center doesn't justify the daily cost of operating that.
No, but we wouldn't be any worse off financially.
No.
It'd be a wash.
Right.
Well, all right, there are three questions, I think. One is, do we want to continue that lease? Two is, what do we do with the furniture? There is an offer to buy it. And three is, do we want to recommend spending the money at the chamber? Or do we want to recommend just moving them into a POA office? Which we have some offices around the building. So, on the first question, what I'm hearing so far is that we don't think we should continue the lease. Does anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that we do not continue the lease
Second.
on the East Gate.
All right.
Right, on the East Gate.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Second question is there is an offer to buy the furniture for $10,000. We paid $28,000 for it. There's still $4,000 on the books for it. My feeling is we could probably use it to upgrade some of the furniture that's in the POA offices. And you know, just generally upgrade the furniture. But does anybody feel strongly on that?
Well, at one time when I visited, when they were in Hot Springs downtown, they had a great big map, the size of one of these tables, of the village.
Two of them.
There's two of them. Are those aren't included as furniture, correct?
They are included in the
They are
furniture.
included in
And
the
somebody,
price.
somebody wants to buy those?
Yes.
Can't get
Because those had to be pricey, weren't they? I mean.
Personally, I think we should just keep the furniture, and if we have to store it over at the Balboa, there's plenty of room
Yeah,
upstairs.
there's some room up.
And then it could be disseminated out wherever it needs to be.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
And I think those map things in particular could be useful in the future as we get more heavily marketing. But
All right, do we have a motion on the furniture?
A motion to buy the furniture
Keep
for
the
up to
furniture.
$10,000.
No, keep it.
We don't-
Or to keep the furniture at a cost to us of,
No,
It's
it
no
would not
cost to us?
No.
we could sell it for $10,000.
Yes.
Ah,
I'll make a motion, we keep the furniture.
sounds good. I'll second.
All right, any further discussion on that? All in favor?
I,
The third question is going to the chamber, which is, the terms of that are,
For 75, I think. Now, we might want to table that one for the time being.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
There is another alternative of using the POA facility, and I'd like to explore that before we jump into the other one. If you give me a little time on that, I think we've got a pretty good alternative.
okay.
And, yeah, and plus that, the marketing group is making a presentation to the board tomorrow, and I think we need to hear that before we decide kind of what happens. So I'd suggest tabling that, so.
All right, so tabling is agreed? All right, we'll table that for now, and we'll bring it up next meeting, which, by the way, I am not planning to have a meeting next week, but we pick up on the 7th of July, if that's okay. All right? All right. We have some new business. On the table in front of you, you'll see an email from Chief Middleton, and as well as a bid for equipment and some information on useful life. And, Chief, if you would, please. Please take the floor.
Make sure that you don't do it.
Oh, don't do it, don't do it, okay.
Don't do
We
it.
trust you.
We need a
All right.
volunteer.
In 2016, we were able to purchase one of the best, less than lethal tools that we've been able to get so far in police work. And this is, I'll refer to it as Taser, that's the name brand. It's from Axion Enterprise. It is an electronic device that this little cartridge shoots 2 barbs. It's like a little straight fish hook. And it has an electronic pulse that it basically locks up the muscle between the 2 prongs. And enables us to handcuff the suspect. It takes him out. Anybody that's ever been shot with one of them, they don't want it again. I mean, it really works. We've only had to use it 1 time on a human, and the female officer, she deployed it 4 times on him before help got there, because he was telling her, "I'm gonna kill you." And she kept him on the ground till the help got there. She was okay. The other time was on a dog that was trying to eat the officer up, and it was very effective on him. They've used it many, many times, and it's not gonna go off. I won't pull the trigger. See the little red dot? When you put that on a person, it's amazing the psychological effect it has. Okay? So, I mean, usually that's all it takes to get compliance.
You can have one.
Yes, yes, and that's the effect you get. So a great tool, and it helps keep my officers safe, help keep the community safe, great tool. But they have a workable life of 5 years, like our bullet-resistant vest. So it's time. One of the things that you need to know is Taser has a $10 million liability insurance policy that they extend to us, so that if we utilize it and we get sued, and if it's because of the Taser, a default in the tool itself, we have a $10 million liability insurance policy through them. They'll stand behind us. After the 5 years, though, if we use it, and we're in that situation now, they're over 5 years, if we deploy it and the tool itself malfunctions, we're hanging out on our own. Our insurance is liable. So that's something to keep in mind. So what I've done, we went through the inventory. The Tasers that we're replacing them with, all of the tools, all of the accessories will interchange with the new ones. Okay, so the holsters, the cartridges, the cameras will all interchange. So I made sure of that. So what I'm trying to outfit is 19 officers. That's what I have now, is 19. So I've asked for 16 Tasers. I'm 3 short of meeting the 19. I would be over budget if I asked for all 19. So if I have to, I'll try to go out to outside sources, to get the other 3. We don't qualify for any outside help from any state or federal agency. We don't. All grants require you to be a municipal governmental entity, tribal council, which we're none of the above. We're a private entity, so we don't qualify. So that kind of limits us for grant opportunities. So therefore, if the POA or private money does not help us, then, we don't qualify. So anyway, whatever you can do to help me, There's the list of things that I'm asking for. Last year, I had it in the budget. My police radio system was failing me. The officers needed to be able to communicate, so I moved that money over and upgraded the radio system and put it in this year's budget. So,
And the 3 units you're not asking for, do we have units that are in warranty on those?
no. What I did over the last 5 years, I was able to get 2 more officer positions. And I've not had all my positions filled. This is the first time I've had all my positions filled in a while. And I have 2 officers in the academy now, so in 13 weeks, they'll be back out of the academy. And unless I lose someone, I'll be full. So
And that number is?
it's 19 total.
How many would be on a shift at one time? I
Okay,
guess?
it depends, 3 to 4 on patrol, and then I have 2 in CID. So depending on whether they're on vacation, sick, or so forth.
Can they share the,
You know, we don't like to do that. We try not to share the equipment. I'd rather them have their own so that they maintain it. Because if I'm responsible for my equipment to make sure it's in good working order, I'll make sure that I maintain my own equipment. In the beginning, we started out with 4 tasers and we shared them shift to shift, and it did not work well.
the black X26P?
Mhm.
What part is that? That's like $17,000.
It's $1,113. That's this.
Right.
That's the actual, I would call it the pistol handle.
There's like a battery in it?
Okay, no, the battery and camera is this portion.
That's the $596
Right,
a
this is
piece.
the battery and camera portion. This is the actual X26. This is the electronic portion,
Oh,
okay? And then this is the actual cartridge with the charge that has the barbs in it. And that's a 25-foot cable. And these little jewels now are about $30 a shot. The holder, we issue an officer 2 of these. So he has an opportunity, if he fires and misses, he can reload and fire again. And 14 of my guys want to carry these. My 2 CIDs, myself and my lieutenant, we're not wanting to carry one. And one of my guys is about this big and he don't have room. So,
Chief
yeah.
Middleton,
Yes, ma'am.
what does this leave you short? What, if you had everything you
With all
want,
this, I'm short 3 of these.
3 of the
That's
11,
1,100, yes.
Okay. So you're short 3 of the 11, 13,
Right.
plus tax.
Plus tax.
This may be a dumb question, but is there any trade-in value or resale value for these?
No, because I asked that very question.
Okay,
And they told me that if they took these in, they'd rebuild them and we could use them for training. They would not guarantee them. And I said, I'm not gonna waste shipping to send them to you for you to send them back.
yeah,
You know, I don't need them as a training tool if they're of no value.
yeah. It was a good question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I asked, and I said, I find it hard to believe that you cannot rebuild these units and make them good.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there may be a lot of wives who'd like them to.
Oh,
discipline
my
them,
wife
but
would
you know.
love to have this, but she's not getting it, guess what? But anyway, you know, I appreciate any consideration you give me on this, because this really does make it safe for my guys, and,
For all of that,
yeah.
what kind of a time element are you looking at?
right now.
They're outdated now,
Okay.
and I don't know if you noticed how the country's getting. We never know when that may knock at our door, and, you know,
And if they use it and somebody decides to take us to court,
right now, we're on our own. We have what the POA insurance covers.
Is the
Yeah.
insurance aware of that situation? Does it seem like
Probably
that-
not, probably not.
That could be a legal problem.
It could be. I mean, we've got coverage, but
could be like
Yes,
a
sir.
pool situation.
What other techniques would you use if you weren't using a taser? If you had no tasers, what other?
okay,
technique would
my
you
guys, they're certified with the baton, but you have to be close contact. And with that, you just have to beat them down till they submit. That doesn't look good on camera. Okay, because
Well-
everybody carries a video.
I have a problem with those tasers. You shoot a 70-year-old around here with a heart problem, you kill him, could kill him.
Good, maybe not. There's
Well-
questions about that too.
And I know you say we got a $10 million liability there from those guys. I guarantee you, if you kill someone here with that taser, that insurance company will not pay that. They will find reasons why. You either overcharged it, it was too much, too close a distance, or whatever, and they will not pay, and the POA will end up paying for it.
Well, there again, there's been case study by this company. They have documentation. This thing pulses for 5 seconds. It's not a continual shock, you know, and they have defended that. Okay, now that's not to say it's not gonna happen. Anybody can be sued for anything. There again, if we try to handle the 70-year-old and we let him fall, we're gonna be sued as well. I mean, so
Well, I don't understand.
Are you
that.
volunteering?
we're responsible for that 70-year-old regardless.
But you're gonna have a gun, hopefully you're not gonna shoot him.
Well, there
You're gonna
again,
have a baton, you can beat him to death, and now you're gonna have another, taser that you could kill him with electricity. And how many times have you used the taser? You said once?
we've used it once,
So
that
we
we
spent,
actually,
$300,000 for a one-shot taser and a dog?
an actual discharge. We have pulled it numerous times though where it
And just
changed their
put the
mind.
red dot on
Where it changed their mind, or we could have used it, but they changed their mind. That's what we want. We want to change their mind where we do not have to use that force.
it. Don't
Okay?
seem to be too negative with it, because I sat through your citizens program. I've contributed to your other funds where you
Sure.
wanted to drive up. But I have a real problem with this taser stuff.
Yeah.
That's just my
Okay.
opinion.
It's either that or go straight to deadly force, and we don't want to do that.
Well, hopefully
Chief,
not.
do our guys wear cameras?
Yes, they do. And there again, in today's time, I like to have as much video as I can. The cameras give this shot with the camera on the taser, wherever it's pointed, you get that view as well. So there, that helps us too with the liability because it gives you a different view.
Is that an adjustable charge on that?
No.
Or is it, it's a fixed, same voltage?
Okay, and I don't know all the technical term, but it's not a constant charge.
Right.
It's a pulsating charge, and it goes for 5 seconds, and then it stops. Okay, John Paul, don't do that, you see.
I'm 70. I'm the guy he's talking about.
Maybe that's right.
I can feel that.
Okay, so it stops by itself, and then if you want it to go again, you pull it again, and it'll do the same thing.
So that's not with the little darts that go out
Okay, no,
from a distance,
this
just
is,
for the officer's safety?
okay. You put the cartridge in, it'll go 25 feet. You can use it like this as well. Let's say that you shoot and you miss. You can use this right up against the person. We call that dry stun. Okay.
So I'm curious,
But
if you
it's
need,
a pulsating, not a constant current,
if you have 19 officers, but you're only asking for 16, how come you didn't ask for the full 19?
because I've been over budget. I was trying to stay within the budget.
So you need another $8,500 to complete, so everybody on the force would
It'd be
have.
another 33 plus
3,300.
tax.
So the total right now for 16, to cover 16 people is $23,855. Now, the unit itself, it's got a useful life and it's beyond the useful life and it's not covered any longer with the insurance company.
Right, under Taser, it's not covered under their 10 million.
But then it might go on for another 5 years.
It could. This particular unit here does not have the screen anymore. I can tell you I cannot tell you what the battery life is left. When you flip it on, there's nothing on the screen. And that's a problem too, because it goes through a series of checks on the unit itself. So you don't know what it's doing.
All
How
right.
much training does your guys get on that? Does
We
the
have
vendor
to
come in, or do
We
you
have to
train them?
qualify annually with it. Okay, and it's an 8-hour class.
Here in the village?
I have 2 instructors.
What do other police departments do? How long do they keep their tasers?
It's the same, 5 years on.
5 years?
Yes.
And just for GPs, how many times would you estimate that somebody 70 plus is in a situation that you need that? And how many times is it?
We've not had any 70 plus. Most of ours are, the oldest is probably 50.
When they see that light, they're done, right?
Yeah.
They
I
say,
mean,
no, thank you.
right. And most of the people we deal with, they know what a taser is. They've been introduced to it before. You know, so it's,
And if we were to suggest buying 3 more units, we would also need to buy the taser cam for 3 more units?
no, I built that into the price there on the, hoping,
Well, here's the 1113, then here is the taser cam down below.
right, I had enough cams in that budget that would cover the other 3, because I was hoping that if I had that built in, I could go to outside sources if I couldn't get those 3 here.
Would you still need 3 more holsters?
No, that would be enough to cover all 19.
All right, and cartridge holders?
No, that's total price,
All right.
with exclusion of the other
Short
3.
guns, okay.
So
So,
it's only the
With the hand.
$1,113.
Times 3.
Times 3 plus
333.
tax, 7,
39.
right, 70-point-something% tax.
Officer Middleton, it almost sounds like you had approval for this and used the money for something else that you needed?
My radios, yes, my radio system was.
So now it's just been, basically, what you're really doing is something that was
Pushed back 1
approved, yeah, before.
Well, that was last year, right?
Right.
Yes.
Pushed back another year.
And then the money was moved over, and now you're coming again and saying, we still need this.
Yeah, this is pretty
Yes, you just,
good. Safety.
And isn't this on this thing we were working with, it's been held for this year?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
yes.
so it's kind of like the culvert situation.
All right, are there any reports on use of the stun guns that in particular would address Morris's question on the
Health risk.
for seniors?
You know, I bet I could contact Taser and get some reports through them, because, I mean, they defend it all the time.
Well, our recommendation would go to the board for their July meeting.
Okay.
If what might be helpful is if we could get any reports that are out there for our July 7th meeting, and then we can address that prior to the board's next.
I'll be glad to check with Taser and see what they have, if they can release to the public any case history, any documentation, report documentation they've defended.
I think the inclination of the group sounds like, you know, we want to support you on it, but we just want to make sure that we're supporting something
Right.
that we can, with the pass the red face test, that we explored that.
I know it was only used on a human once,
Right.
but sometimes I kind of feel also with Morris on this, that sometimes, you know, you pull out a gun and the officer knows that if I shoot this thing, I'm gonna hurt this guy really bad. And there might be a tendency with it being a taser where you think, okay, I can shoot this guy and nothing, and I'm not gonna kill him.
No,
And then that, it might be that you'd be more prone to shoot them. I would just be concerned, I don't want anybody getting seriously hurt.
well, we don't train that way, so.
Oh, okay.
So where does this affect us financially? Because originally it's been redlined, canceled, and now he's coming back and asking for it. It wasn't green or yellow.
We would need to, we would move it to the green column, and it reduces the reserve that we're holding on for the time being.
And you said our financials in May were better than anticipated, and the forecast for the end of the year showed that if things continue based on the forecast, that we should be all right, so this won't affect us?
We should where we are right now with the financials is May was better than what the original setup was. And so, but when you forecast out, 1 month isn't enough to
No, I understand
dramatically
that.
change, so
We're,
we
I
still
believe in
end
the
up.
fairy tale.
Yeah, I mean, we still have potential to be in that $3 to $5 million shortfall.
Okay.
And so, this would, and right now we have the PPP that is sitting there. And once we can file for that and move that to a credit on our expenses, then, that will write some of it. But the reality is that nobody really knows what's gonna happen the rest of the year with the virus. And if it comes back aggressively, then we're gonna have a bigger shortfall. And so we'll need to have additional fallback position. So that's why those capital numbers are held right now to preserve our fallback position.
See, I look at this money a little bit differently, in all respect to the chief. I'm looking at that $25,000 because we have limited budgets, okay? I'm looking at what we can do with that $25,000 somewhere else. Maybe we don't have a better project, but we need an automated system for the budgeting and some of this other stuff to make it a little easier for getting all the budgets and all that stuff gelled together. That's the way I look at it. Maybe that $25,000 could be spent better there. If you're saying it's already a done deal, that's different, but that's where I'm looking. Where's this money going? How can it be better used?
Well, in the green column, you will find the money for the software upgrade.
Well, we've got a whole bunch of stuff in red that wasn't.
And this is
Okay.
just one of those things that isn't red.
Chief Middleton?
Yes, sir.
What's the latest that you could delay this?
Well, there
I mean,
again,
nice to have now, I understand that, but you also have to understand that we're very concerned as we get further in the year, if the numbers don't jive, then we're gonna have a big mess when it comes to October, November, December, and if you could wait till October with what the equipment you have, that might be a better deal, or if things look great in June, July, and August, you could get it as early as September.
well, here again.
I think that's our whole committee's concern is, we're trying to conserve revenue to make sure that we don't get into trouble, but yet we know that public service or safety is extremely important, and I don't want you to go out without your proper tools, because I don't want anything to happen to our officers either.
Well, right now, I'm at the point I'm gonna pull the tasers because it's a liability, they're out of service.
Okay?
And they're not gonna have less than lethal tools. Because if I don't, and we have an incident, then the POA is gonna get sued too, so.
Right.
I have to look from that aspect too, I've gotta protect the company, so.
So that leaves you with two options.
Exactly.
Go right to a sidearm or the gun, or
Right.
the club.
Because, I mean, I'm in a position where I'm between a rock and a hard place, so I've gotta choose the lesser of the two evils.
Do you have pepper spray?
I do, but not all the guys are certified. And here's the thing with pepper spray, if I need to take him out in this room, everybody in here is gonna get it. It affects everybody. And it's not 100% effective on everybody too, so.
Right.
Yep.
We thank you for your service.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's
And
kind of
it's
money
not, it's
thing.
not an easy decision, but, the fact of the matter is, everything we do revolves around liability, so.
All right. If you could get us that
I will.
stuff for the.
I will, I'll see what I can find and
And
I'll get
then,
it to you.
we will revisit it on the 7th before we
Sure.
make a recommendation.
I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
taken that, we do have to be very cautious about how we spend, money now to make sure that we're not caught off guard later in the year. And certainly, you know, everything we spend is gonna be a trade-off, one versus another, and so we're gonna have to grapple with that all through the rest of this year. All right, organizationally, marketing subcommittee appointments, we have a complete list. And I didn't bring it either. Do you have a copy of that email? All right, the charter is complete. We have 2 members of the old MSC that are going to participate with this one. And that's Ray Lehman and Nancy, and can you find it?
Yeah, I can't find it. I'm sure it's here. I just sent it out.
Do you just want approval?
No, I'm just really letting you know where they are.
You go ahead.
Anyway, we're gonna start the process Thursday, and they also have been invited to the board discussion session tomorrow, as you were, to attend the marketing discussion. So I will try to get back for that from the appointment I have in Little Rock.
Do you want the names in the minutes, or is that?
Well, here's the list here. Pam Avila will be the board representative. Paul Sage will be the staff. Ray Lehman, we talked about Wes Smith, Bill Goodwin, Nancy O, and Paul Bailey. What's the other? So they are, if you see them tomorrow, please welcome them to the party, okay? All right, working group, the strategic planning discussion.
Okay, certainly invite the rest of the work group to chime in if they have something that they wish to add, but between last week and this week, we managed to meet twice. We have set up regular meetings, Monday mornings, weekly, until we decide either to meet more often or less often. We spent some amount of time talking about adding to our work groups, expanding the number. I think after some discussion, we decided maybe we should try to understand more about what we're getting ourselves into before we decide a more optimal number of people on our work group. In that spirit, we have scheduled to try to do a little SWOT analysis. I think the outcome of that will be both useful from a informational standpoint, but also kind of from a behavioral standpoint. One thing I think we thought we needed was a little experience at facilitating conversations. So that's kind of a little bit of an experiment. It says, begin the strategic planning process, and I think we actually did that. We started to review the 2010 strategic plan more from a process standpoint than a content standpoint. They did a pretty nice job in summarizing the process that they used. And in addition to that, in the Coronado Library, they have a folder about this big with about 300 pages of documentation from 10 years ago. I've started to look at that, not very much, but I'm hoping the other team members can also avail themselves of that. I think overall, I felt pretty good that we do have a little bit of traction and a little bit of momentum, and certainly I hope that we can keep that up. I mean, we definitely have some ideas of next steps, but
So Tom, how do we engage the other committees in the process, the Recreation Committee, the Golf Committee, et cetera, as they're looking at their longer range plans?
I would have to say we haven't got that far yet. Just as a comparison, in 2010, and in fact in 2009, the RASP at that time started the planning process, and it, just in terms of envisioning the general plan and the steps, it took them 3 months. Now, I don't know if they were in a big hurry or not. I suspect that they weren't. I think they were in a much bigger hurry. But definitely, we're not there yet. I think if you look at the process that the folks in 2010 used, somewhere along the line, and it's not exactly clear how or when, there was a very large information gathering process, and it would seem to me that, and that took 3 months. So it seems to me that if we were to use the same process, we would probably do roughly the same thing. I think, and oh, by the way, is that we are definitely strongly entertaining meeting with Keith Keck and a few of people that he may select in terms of just reviewing what they did and asking his little group, however they're put together, for whatever pieces of wisdom they can give us. I think your question's excellent, but the number of people that they had involved was very large. And I was looking at the CMP, their planning process, the number of people that they had involved was very large. And that's something that I think we're kind of wrestling with. But certainly I understand, and I think the group understands the desirability to have a very wide net in terms of information gathering.
Right.
I really can't answer your question. Mm-hmm. I just have a hazy picture of, what is it gonna take? And it's very clear to me that, at least in 2010, and for the CMP, there was a very, very, very strong attempt to be very thorough and inclusive.
Okay. Well, it is important that we get input from these committees as we move along, because they've been focused on their area for a long time, and they're going to think of things that we don't think of. And when that time is right, then you guys will know that. So, okay. Anything else?
No, any comments from you guys?
It's not appropriate to go into the strategic versus financial versus development.
Not yet. We will.
And maybe for the next meeting, we might have a draft
Document of understanding, yeah.
that we'll present.
Which is more of the basic premise of what you're working from? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it tries to establish what we mean by plan, and it's pretty high level. And then I'm thinking about including something that looks like a timetable with just very general descriptions of the steps.
Okay.
But the group as a whole, when we do present this, we want to be able to measure the smart metrics.
Oh, that's way at the end, yeah.
I know,
But
but
yes.
we wanna get you a document
No,
that's
not-
actually
not at
gonna
this
be
point.
used.
Yeah.
The document, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lee.
No, the document understanding, we want to make it clear what we are doing, but what we're not going to do, or in our vision, okay?
Right.
Maybe external factor. This is what we plan to do, but this is what we don't see in our ability.
And if told otherwise, then we just have to
Yeah,
adjust.
yeah, you could say, well, we want that included.
Yeah. We're not gonna say something like, we need another golf course, and, you know, that's kinda crazy to
Hey,
go
hey,
into
hey,
that
I
type of.
told you not to say that.
Okay.
I went this guy.
But we're already discussing stuff like that, and that's way beyond, I think, our scope.
Yeah. We're,
Just one thing, I'm glad to hear that you are gonna start a process of touching base with some of the other committees. I would recommend one of the committees early on be the Recreation Committee, because I know that prior to COVID, they were conducting deliberative engagement sessions with villagers from multiple areas around the Coronado Center, therefore, you know, things like that. So as they're not, you know, left behind. There's already a lot of input, and they haven't finished that process yet. They're waiting, they've kind of been put on hold because of what's going on with the virus, but they hope to, I know, kick that off again and hopefully finish that within the next couple of months.
Well, again, just to give you a little perspective, the 2010 strategic plan, the entire, from kickoff, I mean, from, you know, the germination essentially to the delivery of the plan to the board took 10 months. And you can fit a lot of activity in 10 months. I'm not proposing that, you know, we want 10 months or we should be given 10 months, but that's the timeline that, you know, a group was working with. The CMP, on the other hand, was quite the opposite.
We're in phase
They
one.
squished an incredible amount of work
We're in phase
into
one.
something like 3 months.
mhm.
But,
Sort of fall.
I don't see a mask
I don't know,
required.
I guess
I don't see
maybe
where a mask is
we paid them a lot of money, so.
Well,
We're just
that's
following
kind of
this.
your plan. They're making-
Somewhere in between maybe where we want to land.
They're in phase
Yeah,
one.
yeah, we're in phase one.
Yeah, we just started phase 1.
I mean, if a picture helps,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's where Tom has his focus, is in phase one.
Okay.
And as far as timing, Tom will be talking about that more next
Timing's
Tuesday,
important.
we're not gonna have a meeting.
Whenever.
The next
Seventh.
meeting that you have, will be more prepared to talk about timing.
Okay. All right. Budget oversight. We need to get some software in place and then we can really start the process. I really don't want to tie up a lot of Karina's time dealing with the spreadsheet thing that we've been wrestling with. So we do have some money in the budget for software, and we'll need to explore that shortly.
So that money that was budgeted was for AP?
It's in here as paperless AP on this
Yeah,
thing.
Do we know what we want to buy? Do we know what we need?
we need to really study their system first. But I would like to do that before the July meeting so that we can release that and get it moving. Our goal is to make the whole process shorter, in the 60 to 90 day window instead of 180. And so we've got a little window here that we can try to get the software straightened out.
Well, for like the third time, I'll make a motion that we investigate and find some budgeting and forecast software to help shorten the budget and make it less painful in time.
Would you be willing to work with Karina and JMO on
If that's what they
analyzing the
would like.
software? That'd be
And
great.
John might be good at that too.
I can help look, I can help
Okay.
search.
You know, the system that we have is actually a fairly robust system. We haven't been using it as well as we should, and so we need to I think we need to allocate some money to training, to get our team up to speed on the equipment, or on the system and how to use it, and buy the modules that we're currently not using.
Have we really looked at it? Are we using all the modules? I mean, sometimes they're there and they're just not basically turned on.
I don't think we're using them. Karina, do you have any thoughts?
We utilize the accounts payable module. We are fixing to start utilizing the fixed asset module. Our accounts receivable module is not utilized. That is all through our Total E, which is integrated with GP, so it all flows through, but we're not specifically using the module within Dynamics GP for that. The only one we're truly utilizing is AP, and then, like I said, hopefully by the end of this year, we will have all of the fixed asset module up and running.
Yeah.
What I was wondering, maybe we already have Wayne's stuff in there, we just haven't
It might be.
turned on the modules.
Well, Liz said
And then the upgrades.
Liz said multiple times that we didn't have that modular, and that module will cost around $65,000. But her last meeting, she said about $50,000. But that's what we talked about originally in the ad hoc budget meeting or committee in 2019. And again, when we reformed the finance committee, we talked a little bit about that she didn't have that module, because everything she did was on her own spreadsheets, and she was pulling all these different things coming in from the managers and then compiling it. And for somebody to try to go through there and figure all that out is going to be a nightmare.
Well, let's see if we can get into our system and find out what we have and what we don't have, what we need training on, what we need to buy, and see if we can get a system in place by the fall that we can use to actually do some good budgeting work.
Now, you guys know that when the time comes and it's crunch time, and it's all hands on deck, you just tell us what you want, and we'll do it. Whatever you need. At some point, it's gonna be crunch time, and
Oh, yeah.
we'll do whatever you guys want us to do.
Yeah, we will probably want departments to come to these meetings in the fall and provide us input and information. So, because in the end, this committee then makes a recommendation to the board on the budget that's submitted. So, okay.
Karina, do we have any one person that is most knowledgeable of all the components of or is that you?
I'm gonna say that's probably me at the moment.
All right.
I have come across a few things that have not been utilized within our software. One or two of those I brought up to JAMA. It's just upon some recent research I have been doing. For an example is cash flow calendar and so forth. So I do believe that there are modules and aspects of the software that we need to utilize more to our capabilities. It is a very robust software. It's just a matter of getting this set up and figuring them out.
Yeah.
And
The other thing you can do is you can document what you wanted to do, send it to the vendor, and says, can we do this?
Yeah.
You know, and if not, what's it gonna cost us to do it?
Yeah.
And, you know, if
Yeah,
it's
we
not
got-
possible.
You're right,
then
you're
you
right.
get-
You gotta identify the gaps.
Yeah.
What gaps do we want to fill?
And it is
You'll
such
get an answer pretty quick, if you define, you know, the RFP,
Right.
say we
But
want it to
we
do
have-
this and this, and I don't
Yeah.
know
But we
Wayne's
have software.
terminology or yours, but.
Yeah, we have software that has a lot of capacity, and we're just not using it,
Yeah.
and we should be.
Yeah, because even if they have a little standalone one out here, you know, they can still write us a pretty cheap interface
Yeah.
to put it into your Robos model.
Right.
You don't have to go buy a new unit.
Would it save you a great deal of time to maybe buy a few hours of totally, I don't know what type of consulting or what that costs, but rather than you kind of reinventing it, maybe to dialogue with somebody down there, or might that just happen if we're gonna be buying something from them anyway?
Can we help you
How-
somehow, or can somebody help you?
I would like to look at some of the avenues that we've already been exploring as far as the budgeting software that would be in probably an add-in if there's not something that's already there. And some of the AP softwares that can be integrated in, before I waste y'all's time. So, but
Well,
yes,
we
if
can
I hit a
start.
roadblock, I would love help.
I was thinking to
Or
save you
just
time.
outside help too.
She
You
would
know,
be
if you
the-
need to spend some money
Yeah,
to get consultant work or something from
I've
someone.
had Total E because we purchased a GP through them. They are the provider
Okay.
for our accounting software along with the rest of the software that we utilize.
When,
Microsoft Dynamics GP is a very well-used software out there in the accounting field. Sometimes it's a little easier to find some stuff if you go look for yourself.
okay, it's more user-friendly.
Yes, you can find a lot of tutorials and so forth. That's how I've pretty much found my way around the system.
when
But
she-
She's the right person.
oh, yeah.
She's got the
But
knowledge.
whatever you need.
Because they have to be pretty specific, you know, even the word interface or integrate, that's two different words. It means two different things to those
Yeah.
people. You know, it looks the same and it's used interchangeably sometimes, as you well know, but it's not always the same. So she's the right person because you need to get the knowledge.
And Wayne and John are, man, they're finance guys. They know what in the heck they're doing. If I
Whatever you
didn't
need.
realize the volume that you were talking about last week, as far as the purchase orders and invoices, I had no idea. That's amazing.
we're very busy.
Holy cow.
Well, you can see how an investment now would save money later, so anything
Absolutely.
we can do to expedite it. And it's much easier to hire people who are familiar with the going standards, so.
Just as a background for your benefit, Bella Vista's on the same system. So, they're actually, we're about a year ahead of us going into this. So there might be some interface there if we needed to learn something that they're doing. And they keep pretty much everything statistically online. If you go to the Bella Vista website, they've got everything online as far as statistics go. So, just as a background.
No, but the Total E system is used heavily by homeowners associations around the country, so it can do a lot. We just need to take advantage of it, basically.
So no issue that anyone sees with following up on that lead and reaching out to Bella Vista if need be?
No, I don't think
Okay.
there's any problem.
I think we should wait for Karina to come back with a recommendation.
Yeah.
She's the one that's gotta make it work.
But she might need some.
Right, she
some
needs help,
assistance.
no problems.
You want to talk to them about the new portal and all that they're talking about? Let me, we had a conference call with Total E yesterday morning, and Donna, who's the IT software person down there, and Karina were in the room. And what we were talking about, they want, or are trying to get us to upgrade to their new portal. And there are two entities that are not on their new portal, and that's Bella Vista and us. Bella Vista's gonna be doing it at the end of the year. It makes sense to do it in the winter, I mean, when we're slower and it's not going that fast. But it's a little expensive to get over to that system. And one of the things that they're wanting to do, and they were in negotiation with Liz before she left, is that they would like to be our credit card processor. And they are going to send us what the fees would be there so we could compare where we are. And they would consider trading out the new upgrade, if you will, for going on to their credit card processing. And that's something that we've got to analyze and look at. We would have to upgrade all of our machines, our credit card machines out there, but they've got a trade-in deal with that vendor that's $75 a piece, so it's not a huge number, but it's doable in that regard. But that's something I think you need to know about that's out there that we'd be working. And I told him to send us a list of bullet points of what all it could do for us moving over. So I'm expecting that tomorrow or the next day. He said he'd be right on it, along with an analysis of what the credit cards would cost us going to that system. So there's a little background.
Thank you.
All right, kind of jump just a little bit here. We're also going to be reviewing the finance policy and the procurement policy internally. And Maria's going to be looking at that in particular, but the procurement policy is really a critical thing for us. I mean, yeah, we have 7,300 invoices in 5 months, which is kind of crazy. But we also are buying the same thing from multiple vendors. We have a central purchasing person, but they're not doing central purchasing because the system isn't set up that way. And so we met this morning and went through, kind of some of the things that we need to do and some of the things we need to accomplish. And over the next few weeks, we're going to try to go through the policies that we currently have, policies that were written for this committee, and a few other resources that we have, and put together a stronger, more complete purchasing program. In my regular business life, if we need to buy something in certain categories, there is one vendor that you go to, and that's the only vendor that you buy from. And so with us, if Granada wants to buy something, they go to one vendor. If the Granada Grill wants to buy something, they may go to a different vendor. It's the same thing, but they're just going to two different places, and as a result, Karina ends up with two different invoices. And you multiply that times number of golf courses, number of restaurants, number of
Items.
oh, yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Even in the offices themselves, you'll have one person in one office buying from a different person than the person in another office. So there's no consistency in what we're doing. And if we can get the software working to its capability, if we can get the purchasing system working to its capability, and we can just get organization in all that activity, Karina's life is going to be a lot easier than it is right now, because it will be a more streamlined system.
Not only that, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there,
Quantity
cost savings.
discounts,
Oh,
shipping
yeah,
charges.
tremendous cost.
We have a lot of purchasing power if we just utilize it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
We used to do that. I mean, when I first came here in the 90s, there were 3 people in the purchasing department with 6 golf courses. I mean, it was huge back then. Now we have one that's in there, and not everybody uses it. And we all used it before. Now, this is 20 years ago now, but it's changed over the years, and so we need to get back to that, no question about it.
As John said, there's tremendous savings opportunities and efficiencies in how we operate, and just reducing the stress on some of the staff that just doesn't need to be there. So we are working towards that. That doesn't happen by flipping a switch. It'll take some time to get there. So, all right? And Jane is heavily involved in that as well. Thank God Jane is here.
Amen.
I agree with that.
All right. Ad hoc budget committee report, we asked the staff to take a look at it. I know that a lot of it has been implemented now. Over the past few months, we've been able to do a number of things. And some of the documents that we have, that we need to approve also address some of those things. Do you want to bring us up to date at all at this point?
Well, be honest, I know a lot of things are kind of in the motion of changing at the moment. As far as the, add the policy area for the bidding policy for purchasing, so we're working through all of that currently, as you mentioned, so that should come out soon. As far as budgeting, which covers the fact of overly optimistic revenue budgets, that will be addressed along with the rest of the budgeting that you guys have kind of outlined in here. The delegation of authority is going to be being realigned. So, as I said, we're working through a lot of this stuff, but as changes are made, we'll be able to have a clearer picture of what we can present as far as all of this goes. As far as the budgeting stuff, we already mentioned the software utilization, which would greatly increase our efficiency and so forth. The numeric accuracy and tie-out, there was only 2 sentences here. Could you guys provide a little bit more information as far as the meaning behind it? It says, we had limited review of the accuracy and tie-out process, although we did make observations on certain areas that needed additional analysis. So I didn't know what to address there.
Well, basically, all we were doing was recognizing that we didn't have all the numbers.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, we got to see some of the revenue, some of the revenue numbers and some of the totals for expenses, but we didn't get to see anything that was underneath the totals.
I understand, I gotcha. And I think with revising some of the financial statements, and I know we're still gonna be making some major changes there, you probably end up having subcategories for your expenses and your revenue and so forth, so you get a much better understanding of what's going on.
The one thing I noticed, and I had never seen such a large budget with dollars and cents. It's usually, it's rounded. I think that's what Karina was saying.
Yeah.
I suggested that we round up expenses and round down revenue, but I've never seen dollars and cents in a large budget like this. That's just opportunity for error.
It makes it harder to read.
Being on the ad hoc budget committee in 2019, one of the problems was that we didn't have any hard documentation. It was all put on a screen, some of it was blurry, and we weren't entitled to have anything because it wasn't ready for public view. And if it wasn't ready for public release, the committee didn't get anything. So it was very frustrating as a committee member, and I'm sure my fellow committee members were very frustrated because we got to see a screen maybe for 3 minutes, ask some questions, and then we were moving on. There was no time to really look and do an analysis of all the different things. And I think that's a shortcoming that we had in that committee. And the next committee should be able to see the documentation, even though it's not ready for public view in order to scrutinize it.
As long as we put draft on it, we're okay? Okay. Well,
Even if you collected it at the end of the meeting, it would be better than what we got.
That's true.
I am all for working together to achieve the goals and do everything that's necessary to get where everybody is headed, so I'll be all on the same page.
The other thing I'm worried about is if we're gonna do zero-based budgeting, how well lower managers will be able to understand that. And management should start thinking about talking about that to them so they can prepare and go through the process. Otherwise, you're gonna have a mad panic at the end because nobody's gonna understand how it's gonna, what they want or what they're supposed to supply to you. And so to me, it would make it a little bit more smoother and put the manager has more input that way for the budget to try to make his numbers the following, or her numbers the following year. We can't get the lower managers to take ownership of their budget to try to make sure that their numbers are as accurate as they can forecast and try to achieve those. Then we might as well just have the accounting department make up the budget, which has been in the past.
Right. So along that line, there's many of them down at that level, at department manager level, that may not even have the foggiest idea what they're supposed to be doing. So I would hope that we're planning on some training sessions to train them on how to do that.
I agree. To be honest, I've got some research to do myself on the zero budgeting stuff. That's not an avenue or way that I've done it in the past.
Well, John
So-
Gonzalez volunteered to hold classes for you, be the chief instructor.
Well, I will attend.
We'll get together, make up a calendar, Wayne.
But I think training is definitely important and vital.
And, you know, as we go through this for the first time, there's gonna be a whole lot more hand-holding than there will be the second time, the third time, or the fourth time. And that's just normal. All right, capitalization policy, and depreciation policy still to become investment policy. Wayne, you had some comments?
Yeah, my comments is, we started this process back in March with the defunct Finance Committee, and now we're back at the Finance and Planning Committee picking it back up. And we have a couple little sheets, they're simple in the policy book now, but it's not detailed. But the more I went through this, and a lot of this was cut and paste, we had 3 different entities that we looked at, trying to find out which one we liked the best, and so we kind of plagiarized their system. But when I look at this, I'm thinking, we're asking an awful lot of the treasurer to do and to manipulate, and to me, we're kind of micromanaging. And if I was in the brokerage house or a bank, some of the things that are in this, I tell you to take your business somewhere else, because you're not a big enough account. Now, if we were walking in with $50, $100 million, that would be different. You know, I'd be willing to sign a paper every year and stuff like that. But, you know, our capital requirements, and don't get me wrong, we have money, we have a little less than $10 million, plus the additional money that comes in that sits, and we need to have a sweep so that money goes into a money market account on a daily basis, and then we calculate our bills, and we take that money out, and we pay the bills with it, so we can earn what interest is available. But when we talk about longer-term investments, I think we're kind of limited, or have a limitation of what we can really do. And I think right now, conservative, we should just do the basics, which are US Treasuries, CDs, money markets, that focus on those type of products and not anything other beyond that.
No consideration for a AAA municipal with a insurance behind it?
Well, they're talking about only a 5-year investment, and that's normally a 20-year investment. And you actually, you know, when we get to that point, when we've hit our reserve targets and we start building excess cash that we don't need, then we can look at longer term, a 10-year bond, a 15 or 20, and hold it to maturity. You know, because if you sell that midway through maturity, more than likely you're going to have to heavily discount it. Even if it's selling at a premium, you're not going to get that $101 bond price. It's going to be more like 98 or 97, because you got to discount it for the brokerage house, who then has to find somebody to buy it and wants to buy it at a discount. Not everybody just looks at the interest coupon that's being derived.
Any thoughts?
Generally, I'm absolutely with Wayne. I think from the very beginning, I mean, I think this request, I don't exactly know who was the true sponsor of the request, but it was never totally clear to me why this was the first thing the Finance Committee had to work on. Sometimes the implication is it's the most important thing, and it may have been. So I just looked at it as we're trying to help out Liz, but with
Right.
a clean sweep. I
That's-
guess I want to ask the question again, you know, how important is this, or how critical is this?
That's how we got it. Liz gave it, because she said our investment policy now is about 3 lines.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And they said that was one of the top priorities.
Right.
So that's why we started digging into it, going to all these 4 or 5 different places. And then it got hung up for about 3 weeks because somebody wanted to send it to an investment advisor. Do we have the right nomenclature? You know, it was sort of a
Well,
mess.
can I suggest maybe we ask Wayne to take what you've got there in your hand and modify it to what
Sure.
you just said?
I've got 2 weeks, so I can do that.
I thought you already did it. I thought you said.
No, this was
Yeah.
basically from Liz, And the red is, you know, if you're gonna do this, then, you know, when we started this process, the CFO was the treasurer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, really the one that needs to do the daily sweeps and that stuff is the person that's writing the checks, and that's not the treasurer. So I wanted to be able to give at least the treasurer the ability to designate somebody else with board approval to be able to deal with the banks, to sweep money in and out and so on and so forth. But that's what, it's here in our existing policy, it's just not well spelled out. And if you're scared that you know, you might make a mistake and they're gonna fire you and you want your butt covered, then you want all this detail.
Right.
So you can blame this because this will cover you for everything right now that we have. CDs,
Amen.
treasury, sweeps, and so on and so forth, in my opinion.
Yeah, very well stated.
I'm pretty well.
It's true.
Amen.
All right, so if you would,
That's
please
long enough.
revise that for the next meeting. John, you sent out a paper earlier today.
Yeah, who needs a copy? Anybody print out copies?
That's still,
Good. Well, you do?
Well, then give it back to me.
Well, mine,
Anybody else need a copy?
No, those
was it
those
two
are
pages there?
Okay. That, yeah, I got it.
Everybody have a copy? I have an extra
Good.
copy.
I know I didn't send one to
I
you.
don't-
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody good? All right. Yeah, my purpose in doing this was twofold. Number one, to share with the committee a little bit of history. Oftentimes, I know when I was with Wayne on the initial ad hoc committee last summer, you know, history was something that wasn't easy to see, okay? Now, these numbers, where I got my numbers, these are from the copies of the auditor's report that we had done every year. They were posted online under the HSV POA website. So I went to the Statement of Revenues and Expenses page, and and that's why the revenues are listed as negative numbers here. That's how they're written on that particular page. And then I just grabbed the main categories, the main departmental categories. There are a couple of changes on particularly the first one. But a metric that I had been exposed to before in previous budget lives, previous histories, was what kind of revenue dollars are we generating for every dollar that we spend? Okay. Well, I knew that the number would be a loss here at the village, but I had no idea that some of the departments, you know, would be as poor as they are. So, did everybody have a chance to at least look this through at least a little bit? Okay. There may or may not be any big surprises, and my comments off to the side are only meant to prompt me to make a comment or two as we go through here. Obviously, some departments, they're not like amenities, and we're not, you know, the admin department is really not in charge of earning revenue, right? Like golf is. So the numbers are gonna be skewed and changed. However, it is an indicator, I found it to be somewhat of an indicator in showing if, in setting up the budget, are we setting it up better than the year before in terms of return or worse? Okay, no matter what the revenue or the expenses are, what's the return or loss? So I'll just start real quick, and then anybody can jump in, really, just jump in and ask me questions. Let's start with admin. Admin sales and development is how it all used to be grouped together. I think it's different now. That's why if you look at the 2019 budget, you see it's a lot different than maybe 2018 was, 2019 went. But just looking at, and all I'm doing is dividing the revenues by the expenses. We earned 9 cents in 2016 per every dollar spent in the admin sales and development. How's it trend? Well, 7.5 cents, went up to a dime, 17.7 cents in 2019. I don't know what drove that in 2019, but that was better. That was an improvement. Okay. 2019 budget was set up to return 10.5 cents. We ended up returning 17.7 cents. Well, something right happened in that area. But then, overall, the 2020 budget set up to return 11.4 cents. As of May, we're pretty much on track with that return at 11 cents. All right. Now, that's not getting our dollar back plus 11 cents, that's just getting 11 cents on the dollar. Everybody with me on that?
But what you'd like to get is $1 on the dollar.
Dollar and, yeah, at least $1.
That'd be nice.
So, you know, going through public safety, that's the fire department primarily and the police department. You see what they've been returning, 21, 20, 20, 19, 17, through May 14. Not quite sure why that is, what's driving that down a little bit. I wouldn't expect that department to be impacted that much by COVID. But one thing about that though, when I attended the Citizens Police training, has anybody here gone to that?
Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, you know, we set up that training center with where you go in and the simulator, right. And that was, I had heard at that time, that was something that, and I think it's true, could be used to generate some revenue. I think that if it was marketed properly, maybe something for the recreation committee, I'm gonna bring it up to them. Because if you've never gone through that, it's very interesting. Okay. You go through a real live police simulation, in real life situations, you can simulate 200 plus simulations. But I think for a nominal fee, people might be interested in doing that. Call me crazy, that's what I think. Public Works, you see the history there, 81 cents, 79, 81, pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Bottom kind of dropped out in 19 in terms of what it returned compared to the previous 3 years.
But for the most
And
part,
this
it's
does not
amazing.
include any depreciation in this. This is just revenues and expenses. Public utilities, now those are billed every couple of months, so that could be an issue to why that's only $1.14 is maybe the billing is lagging by a month. That's generally been pretty consistent. Lakes, revenue off to a great start. They were budgeted for $162,000 in revenue. Already have 144.8 booked.
John, who's the primary source of revenues for the lake?
For the
Where
lakes?
does that come from?
Well, I would surmise, I don't have all the answers, but I would think boat registration fees would be an example.
Oh, that'd be one, I was just like.
Yeah, I don't know what all of them are, I'd like to see that myself. In fact, that's a great question for public safety. How do we earn money in that area?
Give them a lot of
Does
tickets, I
anybody-
guess.
It's the ambulance
No, we don't
fees,
get
that's
money.
about
We don't get any money.
800,000 a year.
I know, how do we generate the what?
Ambulance, it's on your
The
wire
ambulance?
bill.
Yeah, that's at
That
14.
one there? Okay.
Yeah, it's like $7 a month sometimes.
Yeah, we don't receive the income from the track tickets.
No, I know.
So as you get into lakes for, you know, is right now, we're getting 85 cents back. Something good's going on with lakes so far this year.
Expenses are way down for lakes year to date, aren't they? Or maybe not.
What?
Food and beverage, we know that's a horror story right now.
That's tragic.
You know,
Well, dredging
93 cents. It was
We just
almost a
didn't
break-even proposition in 2016. Now, revenues weren't much and the expenses weren't much. I wasn't here then. I don't know what was going on with food
Well,
and
in
beverage.
2016, the DeSoto Club wasn't there.
Wasn't there?
Or it hadn't opened yet. And I think the only facility that we were running was Magellan and Balboa, the downstairs. So we were out of the restaurant business for all intents and
Yeah.
purposes. Magellan always was around break even.
Okay.
Dan, did you say something in a board meeting, in the last board meeting, about because of COVID-19 that we were actually, and I might have got this wrong, but because of COVID-19 and the restaurants being shut down, we ended up losing less money than we normally would. Was it
We were shut
something
down.
like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very interesting.
It-
Which is kind of leading to what Paul's saying and.
Yeah, what we need to learn from that is not that, that's just the normal course of events, but that we have to find ways to get back to a normal restaurant type operation. If, you know, if we were only operating 1 or 2 facilities, and we did 93 since on, back in 16, maybe we need to look at more leasing of facilities and find new ways to cut those deals. So we just have to get a little more creative in what we do.
And
So, you know, things opened up in 2017, and you see the trend since 2017. With DeSoto, I guess, 64 cents, 68, pretty darn consistent there. The budget was set up to return 85 in 2019, and it returned 68. This year's budget is set up to return 77, and so far we're at 44. I'm a little surprised about the 2020 budget being set up at a lower amount than 2019, because one of the things I heard Dan and Wayne last year was that, and again, this is COVID had a part in it, but it wasn't in place when the budget was being made up, though. That the food and beverage departments, you know, would have several months to work on advanced bookings and bring in more crowds, more people, more gatherings, more events. You would have thought that would have led to a higher revenue estimate for the budget, but it didn't really. $50,000 more. Golf, golf's the highest returner we have. 79 cents, 78, 76, 73, pretty consistent. 2019, 73 against an 85 return budget. Again, the committee had pointed out last summer, that the golf revenue we thought was consistently over enthusiastic each year, as it was consistently budgeted at a little over 7 million, but you could see the returns. The actual revenues were 5 and some change for 4 years running.
keep
I
in
think-
mind there also that in those revenue numbers, there's sale of golf carts. Okay, so you had 4 years in a row, sales of golf carts that counted into revenue that in the future won't be there because there are no more carts to sell after next year. So
Have they all made
That's
their
even
way through
spooky.
now?
there's one more year.
One
to
more year
go
of that?
Of that, if you continue to lease, if you move from purchasing carts to leasing carts.
And part of, there are a number of ramifications of that, because that went from capital into operating costs. And it reduced assets.
Yeah, your expenses are higher because of the lease, and your revenue is, you've got money from the golf carts in there,
Yeah.
so.
I looked at 2018, the preliminaries at the end of 2018, and I decided to look at all the golf courses. And there was one golf course that was actually making money. It was Cortez. They made about $70,000. And I thought, okay, what's going on? And it was golf carts. They sold their golf carts that year, and they were able to actually make that golf course actually made a profit in 2018. Not allocating the administration part of golf.
And I don't know, but Karina, maybe you can tell me, but do we allocate taxes in the entities, or are they just in administration?
What type of taxes are you referring to?
Like property tax?
Property tax.
No, that's all allocated.
It's allocated to the courses? Okay, it used to be, I just want to make sure it's still running. I think Scott Randall was the one that started that. And we didn't do that before that. And if you go back about, 7 or 8 years ago, he was here. That's when he started allocating it out. Before that, if you go back and look at the numbers, it was all in admin.
And then the last one is recreation, which I found somewhat interesting for a couple of reasons. If you look at the revenues, they don't vary very much, at least from 2016 through 2019. A low of $1,018,000 to a high of $1,096,000. I think that is consistent from year to year. That tells me that our amenities that fall in recreation are all of a mature nature. No new revenue generating amenities have been added to the portfolio, and they don't change that much.
What was the pickleball courts?
Yeah, you had pickleball.
Pickleball, yeah, pickleball would be the
When was it?
latest ad, but even that
18.
wasn't a big impact, but that would be the
September of
last
18.
major ad.
September 18.
So anywhere, recreation, anywhere from 45 to 50 cents, 50 cents on the dollar. Yeah, what did I get out of this? A little bit of history, and hopefully you did too. The other thing too is, I think we should, as we go to construct this year's budget, next year's budget, we can come back to that ratio and look at it and see how it's gonna fall in relation to our past history, and if it's better or not. That's the main thing.
Yeah, the real
Okay.
key is, as we're doing this, to use the history to make sure that we're realistic in what we're doing. And we can't be budgeting $1 million increases in golf when it doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. We have to be realistic about what those numbers should be. All right.
Well, I think that should be said about all the departments.
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't be subsidizing $1 million to the rec department. I mean, we gotta figure out how we can bring that within tolerance, and we should be breaking even. I mean, that's, our goal would be minimum breaking even. But, we have a sea of red, and it's coming out of our assessments, and you can say, well, it's an amenity, part of our assessment. But our assessments should be taking care of our infrastructure, our roads, buildings, and things like that first.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
No, I think you're right, but, with that history, though, kind of gives us some guidelines
Right.
to work from. And unfortunately, we're not in a position where we're going to turn everything to break even in 12 months. It's gonna be a multi-year process if we're going to do that.
I don't think we'll
It's a
turn
nice chart.
everything
Thank you.
profitable ever, but that's your goal.
Yeah, well, I think I will be well retired by then. All right, anything else for the good of the group?
Well, if you'd like to talk about this, I think Stephanie had talked to you about our backhoe situation. A little bit. Well, they talked about it the other day in the meeting, and I thought it'd be good for this group to weigh in on it, at least one or two of you weigh down. But we have three backhoes that are up, their lease is up. And they were on a 4-year lease. And we need backhoes. And my question was, do we lease new ones? Do we take the residual on these and finance them over the life of what's left? Or do we purchase new ones? And we've got the quotes from the company, both on the leasing new ones and financing these for the remainder. And I'd like for you to look at it and give us a recommendation on what you think we ought to do. And what I was gonna say was, we can get to our lead mechanic and our operator to show you what the useful life of these machines are and where they start costing us money in the cycle. And the operator to tell us what we really need as far as the type of backhoes. One of them, we don't need. We need a different kind for one of them, and the other two, we can use these or buy ones just like it, or lease ones just like it. So I think we could use a little help in analyzing this, Tom, if you would.
I'm happy to do
I
that.
appreciate it.
I have no experience or expertise in it, but
Well,
I'm happy to
Do they
stay.
have running hour meters on them?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we have the hour meter, and the mechanic can tell you where the expenses start in that.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
And in my background there again, you know, we based everything on how many hours it's been running, and once we got it close, you know, if it was close, but the maintenance still hadn't been kicking up on it, we might keep it another year, but.
Yeah, but you were talking
normally, you know,
financing them too, and this is on an open-end lease that's up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are only 13 of these in the United States, and so time is of the essence, or we're not gonna have any backhoes. So.
13 new ones,
13 new ones, yeah, to pick from in the United
Oh,
States.
wow, okay.
but we're well below average on the running hours.
Yeah,
Well,
we're
Do you know how
below.
many, do you know how many hours?
Gosh, it was something like, was it only
I'd-
200? I want to think one was 600 or something like that. It was well below.
They're well below, they're only
And-
4 years old.
Could you pull the repair expenses?
Oh, yeah.
For the unit or units in question, so we can see if they've been
Absolutely.
progressively increasing?
We can get you all that,
That's-
that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah, if somebody can pull together a
Okay,
proposal.
but
we can
that's,
make
I
this-
think, to me, that's a valuable part of this committee, is we can go to that committee and find out, because it's above my raising on that sort of thing, and we can find out
We literally just got this from Caterpillar this afternoon.
this afternoon.
So we've not had a chance to look at it.
Oh, okay.
That's why John Paul's bringing it up right now.
I just wanted to alert you to it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Well,
I mean,
our next meeting is July 7th. Is that soon enough to address?
Oh,
it?
yeah, we're good there.
All right. All right, anything else? John Paul?
Really appreciate everybody doing this. It's very helpful.
Anybody have anything else? Anybody want to move to adjourn?
They're looking at each other. Which one?
Huh?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
You heard that first?
Thank you.
Well, who wants to?